Admiral Kethvar's four eyes swept across the assembled war council, each delegate representing the most powerful military forces in the Galactic Coalition. The Zeltharian's scaled hide gleamed under the harsh lights of the command chamber aboard the flagship Dominion's Edge. Around the circular table sat generals, fleet commanders, and strategic advisors from dozens of species, their varied forms creating a tapestry of galactic military might. The holographic display in the center showed a three-dimensional map of the Outer Rim territories, where a small blue world orbited an unremarkable yellow star. Earth, the humans' homeworld. Esteemed colleagues, Kethvar began, his voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of military experience. I have called this emergency session to discuss the escalating situation in Sector 7739. The humans have rejected our ultimatum regarding their expansion into contested Zone Omega. General Vextar, the hulking Krogan representative, slammed his massive fist against the table. Then we crush them like the insects they are. My forces can glass their pathetic world in a matter of days. A chorus of agreement rumbled through the chamber. The Killian ambassador's tentacles writhed with excitement. The insectoid collective stands ready to deploy our swarm fleets. These mammals cannot possibly stand against our combined might. Kethvar raised one of his clawed hands, and the chamber fell silent. The Admiral's reputation commanded respect, even among the most bloodthirsty species in the Coalition. He had personally overseen the subjugation of 17 worlds and the extinction of 3 rebellious species. When Kethvar spoke, the galaxy listened. My fellow warriors, he said carefully, I urge caution. I have studied these humans extensively since they first appeared in galactic society 37 years ago. They are not like the other prey species we have encountered. Commander Zephala of the Crystalline Empire laughed, her voice chiming like breaking glass. Admiral, with all due respect, they are barely past their own nuclear age. Their ships use primitive fusion drives, their weapons fire simple projectiles, and they have no psychic abilities whatsoever. They are technological children playing with toys. Kethvar's primary eyes focused on the young commander, while his secondary eyes continued scanning the room. That is precisely what makes them dangerous. The statement hung in the air like a toxic gas cloud. Several delegates exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from confusion to amusement. Explain yourself, Admiral, demanded Supreme Tactician Mordun of the Hive Mind Collective. How can technological inferiority make them dangerous? Kethvar activated his personal data tablet, and new information populated the central display. Let me share some observations from my intelligence network. When humans first achieved spaceflight, they did so with chemical rockets that could barely escape their gravity well. Yet within 50 years, they had colonized their entire solar system. Impressive for primitives, Vextar grudgingly admitted, but hardly threatening. They accomplished this, Kethvar continued, while simultaneously fighting 17 separate wars among themselves. Their history is one continuous cycle of conflict, innovation, and adaptation. They have never known true peace. The Killian ambassador's mandibles clicked impatiently. All species have violent histories, Admiral. It means nothing. Kethvar's expression grew darker. Does it? Let me tell you about their first contact with the Rigelian Commerce Guild. The Rigelians attempted to establish a standard exploitation treaty, offering shiny trinkets in exchange for mineral rights. The humans' response was to reverse engineer Rigelian technology within 6 months and demand renegotiation as equals. Impossible, breathed Commander Zephala. Rigelian technology is centuries ahead of human capabilities. The Rigelians thought so too, Kethvar replied grimly. They refused to renegotiate. The humans responded by developing their own faster-than-light communication system and offering their services to Rigelian competitors. Within 2 years, the Commerce Guild's monopoly on transgalactic trade had collapsed. The chamber had grown quieter now, delegates paying closer attention to the Admiral's words. The humans didn't destroy the Rigelians through superior firepower, Kethvar explained. They dismantled their economic empire through pure innovation and strategic thinking. That is what makes them dangerous. Supreme Tactician Mordun leaned forward, his collective consciousness focused intently. One instance of cleverness does not make them a threat to the Coalition. Kethvar nodded slowly. Perhaps not. But consider their response to the Nexan pirate crisis. When human merchant vessels were attacked in the outer reaches, they didn't petition the galactic authorities for protection. They didn't negotiate with the pirates. They studied the attack patterns, identified the pirates' base of operations, and launched a preemptive strike with a fleet of converted cargo ships. Cargo ships? General Vextar scoffed. What could cargo ships accomplish against battle-hardened pirates? The humans had retrofitted them with experimental kinetic weapons, Kethvar answered. Simple mass drivers that accelerated chunks of asteroid debris to near-light speed. The Nexan fleet was obliterated before they could even raise shields. The Nexan fleet, the chamber fell completely silent. Kinetic weapons were considered obsolete by every major military force, abandoned in favor of energy weapons and exotic matter missiles. The idea that such primitive technology could be effective was almost incomprehensible, but that's not the remarkable part, Kethvar continued. After destroying the pirate fleet, the humans offered medical aid to the survivors. They rebuilt the pirates' home stations as legitimate trading posts. They turned enemies into allies through a combination of overwhelming force and unexpected mercy. Commander Zephala's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. This is all very interesting, Admiral, but it hardly constitutes a military threat. We command fleets, numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Our technology surpasses theirs by orders of magnitude. Kethvar's 4 eyes focused on her with laser intensity. Tell me, Commander, what do you know about human military doctrine? Standard planetary defense forces, she replied confidently. Orbital weapon platforms, ground-based missile systems, fighter squadrons. Textbook defensive strategy. Wrong. Kethvar's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Human military doctrine is based on a concept they call total war. Every citizen is a potential soldier. Every factory is a potential weapons manufacturer. Every ship is a potential weapon. The Admiral paused, letting the implications sink in. During their last global conflict, humans transformed their entire industrial base in a matter of months. Automobile factories produced tanks. Electronics manufacturers built radar systems. Even their entertainment industries contributed to the war effort. They mobilized their entire species as a single organism dedicated to victory. Surely you exaggerate, protested the Killian ambassador. I wish I were, Kethvar replied solemnly. In that same conflict, when one of their cities was destroyed by atomic weapons, they didn't surrender. They built bigger bombs and erased 2 enemy cities from existence. When their naval forces were crippled in a surprise attack, they rebuilt their fleet in 18 months and conquered half an ocean. The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't matching their intelligence reports about the peaceful, diplomatic humans who had joined galactic society. Most remarkably, Kethvar continued, when that global war ended, they didn't enslave the defeated nations. They rebuilt them. They shared their technology. They turned former enemies into some of their strongest allies. It took less than 20 years for their former foes to become valued partners. General Vextar stood abruptly, his massive frame towering over the table. Enough of this historical speculation. Even if everything you say is true, they are still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. My Krogan legions alone could overrun their defenses. Kethvar's expression grew grim. General, have you ever studied predator-prey relationships in evolutionary biology? The question caught Vextar off guard. What does that have to do with military strategy? Everything, Kethvar answered. On most worlds, apex predators are large, powerful, and individually superior to their prey. But there's another type of predator that evolution occasionally produces. Pack hunters, species that compensate for individual weakness through coordination, intelligence, and sheer, relentless determination. The Admiral gestured to the holographic display, which now showed Earth's position relative to human colony worlds. Humans are pack hunters on a galactic scale. They don't just fight as individuals or even as nations. They fight as a species, and they have been preparing for galactic conflict since the day they learned they weren't alone in the universe. Impossible, Commander Zephala exclaimed. "Our intelligence indicates they're focused on peaceful exploration and trade." Kethvar's laugh was bitter. "Their civilian operations are indeed peaceful. But examine their colonial patterns. Every human settlement is positioned to control strategic hyperspace routes. Every trade station can be converted to a military outpost. Every exploration vessel carries more sensor equipment than some of our warships." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Several delegates began frantically accessing their own intelligence networks. "Furthermore," Kethvar continued, "they've been studying us. Human anthropologists, historians, and strategic analysts have been documenting every aspect of coalition military doctrine for 3 decades. They know our strengths, our weaknesses, our standard tactics." Supreme Tactician Mordoon's collective consciousness buzzed with activity. "Even so, knowledge alone cannot overcome such vast disparities in technology and numbers." "Can't it?" Kethvar asked. "Let me tell you about something humans call asymmetric warfare. It's their specialty. During their pre-spaceflight era, small groups of human insurgents repeatedly defeated larger, better-equipped military forces through superior knowledge of local terrain, innovative tactics, and sheer determination." The Admiral's voice grew more intense as he continued. "They once had a conflict where rice farmers with primitive weapons held off the most technologically advanced military force on their planet for over a decade. The farmers won." A heavy silence settled over the chamber. "But perhaps most importantly," Kethvar said quietly, "humans have something most species lose when they achieve spaceflight. They still remember how to be afraid, and fear makes them incredibly dangerous." "Fear?" General Vextar's confusion was evident. "How does fear make them dangerous?" "Because they know they're outmatched," Kethvar explained. "Every human strategist understands they're facing impossible odds against the coalition. So they've spent decades preparing for a fight they hope never comes. They've developed contingency plans for contingency plans. They've created weapon systems we can't even imagine because they've had to think beyond conventional warfare." Kethvar paused, his 4 eyes sweeping the chamber once more. "I've seen classified human military documents through my intelligence sources. They have plans for evacuating entire populations through hyperspace. They have protocols for turning asteroid fields into weapon systems. They've even theorized about using stars as tactical weapons." The delegates sat in stunned silence. "My fellow commanders," Kethvar said finally, "I have fought 17 campaigns across 4 decades. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, but I have never encountered a species like humanity. They are not the strongest, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced." He paused for dramatic effect. "But they are the most adaptable, the most determined, and the most creative species I have ever studied. They turn disadvantages into advantages. They make weapons from tools, and tools from weapons. They never surrender, and they never forget." The Admiral stood, his imposing figure casting shadows across the chamber. "My recommendation to this council is simple. Do not challenge the humans unless you are prepared for a war unlike any in galactic history. Because if we attack them, they will not simply defend themselves. They will find a way to win." General Vextar slammed his fist against the table again, but with less conviction than before. "Are you seriously suggesting we should fear a species that hasn't even mastered faster than light travel?" Kethvar's eyes blazed with intensity. "I'm suggesting we should respect them, because the alternative may be learning firsthand why they've survived every extinction event their world has thrown at them for the past 1,000,000 years." The chamber fell silent once more, the weight of Kethvar's words settling over the assembled war council like a shroud. In the distance, stars wheeled in their eternal dance, unaware that the fate of entire civilizations might soon hang in the balance. 6 months after Admiral Kethvar's warning, General Vex Tar stood on the bridge of his flagship Blood of Conquest, watching human cargo freighters drift helplessly in space. Their engines had been disabled by Krogan ion cannons, and their crews were transmitting surrender signals on all frequencies. It had been laughably easy. Admiral Kethvar was a fool. Vextar growled to his second-in-command. "Captain Durgek, look at them. Weak. Defenseless. How could anyone fear such pathetic creatures? The Krogan fleet had intercepted the human convoy in the Kepler 442 system, a strategically important crossroads for trade routes between the core worlds and the Outer Rim. Vex Tar's orders from the Coalition High Command were simple: demonstrate human weakness by capturing their ships and enslaving their crews. It would send a clear message to the galaxy about the futility of resisting Coalition expansion. "Sir," Captain Durgek reported, "we have 17 human vessels under our guns, mostly cargo haulers and passenger transports. Estimated crew complement, 8,000 humans." Vex Tar's massive jaw split into a predatory grin. "Perfect. Signal the fleet. Begin boarding operations. I want every human processed and catalogued within 6 hours." The Krogan general turned to address his fleet through the communication system. "Warriors of the Blood Legion. Today we prove that the humans are no different from any other inferior species. Today we show the galaxy that Krogan strength conquers all." Cheers erupted across the Krogan fleet. 200 warships surrounded the helpless human convoy, their weapon systems locked onto the disabled vessels. It was the largest military operation the Krogan hegemony had mounted in 50 years. As boarding shuttles launched from the Krogan ships, Vex Tar allowed himself to feel satisfaction. The Coalition High Command had been debating human policy for months, influenced by Kethvar's ridiculous warnings. This demonstration would settle the matter once and for all. The first boarding parties reached the human ships within minutes. Vex Tar monitored their progress through tactical displays, watching as Krogan warriors stormed through airlocks and secured corridor after corridor. "Resistance is minimal, sir," reported Boarding Team Alpha. "Excellent," Vex Tar rumbled. "Proceed with pacification protocols." But as the minutes passed, something began to feel wrong. The boarding teams were advancing too easily. The humans were retreating too quickly. It felt almost like, "Sir," Captain Durgek's voice carried an edge of concern, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the human ships." Vex Tar's attention snapped to the sensor displays. "What kind of energy readings?" Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match any known weapon or propulsion systems. They're growing stronger." Before Vex Tar could respond, his communications officer announced incoming transmissions. "General, we're receiving a signal from Earth Defense Command. Audio only." "Put it through," Vex Tar commanded. He was curious to hear the humans beg for mercy. The voice that came through the speakers was calm, professional, and completely unafraid. "General Vex Tar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. I'm speaking to you from Luna Base." "General Vex Tar." Vex Tar laughed. "Human. Your ships are surrounded, and your crews are being captured as we speak. What makes you think you're in a position to negotiate?" "I'm not negotiating, General," Admiral Chen replied. "I'm giving you one final warning. Withdraw your forces from the Kepler system immediately, or face the consequences." The audacity was breathtaking. Vex Tar's fleet outnumbered the human convoy 20-1. And this human female was threatening him? "You amuse me, human. Your pathetic vessels can barely fly, much less fight. What consequences could you possibly impose?" Admiral Chen's response was measured and cold. "General, every ship in that convoy volunteered for this mission. Every crew member knew they might not return home. They're heroes, and they deserve better than dying as your prisoners." Vex Tar was about to mock her further when his tactical officer interrupted. "Sir, multiple hyperspace signatures detected, massive ones." The general spun toward his sensor displays just as space began to tear open around the Kepler system. Hyperspace rifts materialized in perfect geometric formation, disgorging ships that defied everything Vex Tar knew about human technology. These weren't the simple fusion-powered freighters in Coalition intelligence files. These were sleek, predatory vessels that moved with impossible grace. Their hulls gleamed with some kind of adaptive armor that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Energy signatures unlike anything in Galactic Coalition databases pulsed along their weapon systems. "Impossible," breathed Captain Durgek. "Our intelligence reported that humans had no military vessels larger than destroyer class." Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge again. You were looking at our civilian fleet, General. Meet the Earth Defense Force. The human warships spread out in perfect formation, each one moving with precision that suggested either superior technology or superior training. Probably both. Vextar quickly counted the new arrivals. 50 ships. His fleet still held numerical superiority. But something about these human vessels made his warrior instincts scream danger. Human Admiral, he growled into the communicator. Your toys are impressive, but you're still outnumbered 4-1. Surrender now, and I might allow your crews to live as slaves. General, Admiral Chen replied, and Vextar could almost hear her smiling. You're making the same mistake everyone makes when they first encounter humans. You're looking at our ships and thinking about firepower. The lead human vessel, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed everything else in the system, began broadcasting on all frequencies. But instead of threats or demands, it was transmitting something else entirely. What are they sending? Vextar demanded. His communications officer looked confused. It appears to be music, sir. The haunting melody filled the bridge of every Krogan ship. It was unlike anything in Galactic Coalition databases, simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Human voices rose in harmony, singing words in their ancient language. It's called a requiem, General, Admiral Chen explained. We play it for our enemies before battle. It's a song for the dead. Vextar was about to order his weapons to fire when space itself seemed to explode around him. The human ships hadn't fired conventional weapons. Instead, they had somehow weaponized space-time itself. Gravity wells materialized around Krogan vessels, crushing their hulls like empty cans. Electromagnetic pulse waves, far more powerful than anything the Coalition had ever developed, swept through Krogan formations, disabling ship after ship. But the most terrifying weapon was something the humans called kinetic artillery. Massive railguns launched projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, turning simple chunks of metal into relativistic weapons capable of punching through any known armor. Within the first 30 seconds of battle, Vextar's fleet was cut in half. Impossible, he roared. Our shields should be able to stop kinetic weapons. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles. Admiral Chen's voice came through the chaos. Kinetic weapons don't care about your shields, General. They care about physics. The human dreadnought fired its main gun, a weapon that seemed to bend space around it. The projectile it launched wasn't just fast. It was accelerated through some kind of exotic matter field that increased its effective mass exponentially. When it struck the Krogan heavy cruiser Bloodfang, the ship simply ceased to exist. Vextar watched in horror as his elite warriors, veterans of a dozen campaigns, fell before weapons that shouldn't have worked. The humans weren't using advanced energy weapons or exotic matter bombs. They were using relativity as a weapon. Sir! Captain Durgek shouted over the alarms. The boarding teams are requesting immediate evacuation. What's happening on those ships? Vextar demanded. The response came through broken communications from boarding team Alpha. The humans. They turned their own ships into weapons. The cargo containers weren't carrying trade goods. They were carrying, I don't know what to call them, gravity bombs? Space-time charges? Admiral Chen's voice cut through the confusion. General, those helpless cargo ships were bait. Every container is filled with exotic matter under containment fields that our crews can release at will. Your boarding parties are currently standing next to weapons capable of creating artificial black holes. The threat was clear. The humans had turned their own ships into kamikaze weapons, and they were willing to sacrifice themselves and their prisoners to deny Vextar his victory. You're insane, Vextar roared. You'll kill your own people. Yes, Admiral Chen agreed simply. That's what makes us dangerous, General. We're willing to die to protect what matters to us. Are you? As if to emphasize her point, 3 of the helpless human cargo ships suddenly exploded outward, their exotic matter payloads creating localized space-time distortions that swallowed the Krogan boarding craft whole. Vextar realized with growing horror that this wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. The humans had allowed themselves to be captured specifically to lure his fleet into this trap. Every aspect of the operation had been planned from the beginning. Sir, his tactical officer reported. "We're receiving reinforcement requests from Admiral Kethvar's fleet in Sector 7741. They're under attack by human forces." "Impossible," Vextar snarled. "The humans don't have enough ships to attack multiple locations simultaneously." Admiral Chen's laughter echoed across his bridge. "General, you're still thinking like a conventional military force. While you were planning your little demonstration, we were planning ours. Human fleets are currently engaging coalition forces in 17 different systems." The scope of it hit Vextar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just prepared for his attack. They had prepared for a galaxy-wide conflict. While coalition forces were scattered across hundreds of systems, maintaining occupation forces and patrol routes, the humans had concentrated their military assets and struck simultaneously at multiple strategic targets. "But how?" he whispered. "Our intelligence indicated you had no significant military presence outside your home system. Your intelligence was looking for ships like yours," Admiral Chen explained. "Massive, obvious, expensive vessels that require extensive support infrastructure. We built our fleet differently." As if summoned by her words, space around the Kepler system filled with smaller human craft. They emerged from hyperspace in perfect coordination, moving like schools of fish rather than traditional military formations. These weren't the sleek warships that had already decimated his fleet. These were smaller, faster vessels that seemed to dance through space, dodging Krogan fire with impossible agility. "Fighter craft," Captain Durgek breathed, "but they're moving like they're alive." "Neural interfaces," Admiral Chen said, apparently listening to their tactical discussions. "Our pilots don't just fly their ships, they become their ships. Human reflexes enhanced by direct neural connections to flight systems." The human fighters swarmed through Vex's formation like angry insects, each one controlled by a human mind, directly linked to its systems. They moved with inhuman precision because they weren't limited by the delays of manual controls or voice commands. Vextar watched helplessly as his remaining ships fell one by one. The humans fought with a combination of technological innovation and tactical brilliance that he had never encountered. They used his own fleet's size against him, creating gravitational chaos that turned Krogan ships into obstacles for other Krogan ships. Most remarkably, the humans seemed to anticipate every Krogan tactic. It was as if they had studied Krogan warfare for decades, learning every strength and weakness of their military doctrine, which, Vextar realized, they probably had. "General," Admiral Chen's voice came through the static of his failing communication systems. "Admiral Kethvar tried to warn you. He told your war council that we've been studying you for 30 years. Did you think we weren't learning?" The blood of conquest shuddered under the impact of human kinetic weapons. Vextar's flagship, pride of the Krogan hegemony, was dying around him. "Sir," Captain Durgek reported quietly, "we have 17 ships left. 13 are heavily damaged. Request permission to surrender." Surrender. The word tasted like poison in Vextar's mouth. No Krogan force had ever surrendered in battle. It was unthinkable. "Never," he roared. "We are Krogan. We die with honor." "Actually, General," Admiral Chen interjected, "we'd prefer if you lived. Dead enemies don't spread the word about what happens when you challenge humanity." Before Vextar could respond, his ship was caught in some kind of tractor field. But it wasn't pulling them apart or crushing them. It was simply holding them motionless. "Consider this a learning experience," Admiral Chen continued. "We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first volley. We have weapons that could glass your homeworld from here. But we chose not to use them." "Why?" Vextar asked, genuinely confused. "Because we're not monsters, General. We're defenders. We only kill when we have no other choice. But make no mistake. If you or any other coalition force threatens human lives again, we will not be so merciful." Across the Kepler system, the remaining Krogan ships hung motionless in space, held by human tractor beams. The human fleet could have destroyed them all, but instead chose to demonstrate restraint. It was the most terrifying display of power Vextar had ever witnessed. "We're going to release you now," Admiral Chen announced. "You're going to return to your homeworlds and report what happened here. And maybe next time, someone will listen to Admiral Kethvar when he tries to warn them about humanity." The tractor beams released the Krogan ships, and their engines came back online. Vextar found himself free to leave, his surviving crews unharmed but thoroughly humiliated. As his broken fleet limped toward the hyperspace jump point, Vextar realized that everything Admiral Kethvar had said was true. The humans weren't just another prey species to be conquered, they were something far more dangerous. They were equals, and they had been waiting for someone to give them an excuse to prove it. Admiral Kethvar stood in the observation deck of Coalition Central Command, watching the emergency session of the Galactic War Council through reinforced transparasteel. Below him, the same delegates who had dismissed his warnings 6 months earlier now argued frantically around the circular table. The holographic displays showed the devastating results of what military historians were already calling the Kepler demonstration: 17 simultaneous human attacks across Coalition space, 43 military installations neutralized, over 2,000 Coalition vessels captured or disabled, and not a single human ship destroyed in return. The worst part, from the Coalition's perspective, was that the humans had transmitted everything. Every battle, every tactical innovation, every display of technological superiority had been broadcast across all galactic communication networks. The entire galaxy had witnessed the mighty Coalition military machine being systematically dismantled by a species they had dismissed as primitives. General Vextar sat at the table, his massive frame somehow seeming smaller than before. The proud Krogan warrior who had laughed at Kethvar's warnings now spoke in subdued tones about human, technological superiority and strategic brilliance. The humiliation of the Kepler system had broken something fundamental in the Krogan psyche. "How could our intelligence have been so wrong?" demanded Commander Zephala, her crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. "Our reports indicated that humans possessed no military vessels larger than destroyer class." Supreme Tactician Mordoon's collective consciousness buzzed with agitation. "They didn't lie to us. They showed us exactly what we expected to see. Their civilian vessels, their exploration ships, their research platforms. We never thought to look deeper." Kethvar had heard enough. He activated his personal communicator and requested permission to address the council. Within moments, the chamber's attention focused on him as he entered through the main doors. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his voice carrying a weight of vindicated authority, "I believe I can answer your questions about human capabilities." The chamber fell silent. Even the most arrogant delegates recognized that Kethvar was the only member of the War Council who had predicted this outcome. "You ask how our intelligence failed?" Kethvar continued, moving to stand before the central holographic display. "It didn't fail. It told us exactly what the humans wanted us to know." He activated his personal data tablet, and new information populated the display. While we were cataloging their civilian vessels and trade routes, they were implementing what they call a defense through deception strategy. The hologram showed a detailed breakdown of human ship classifications. What the Coalition had identified as cargo haulers were revealed to be modular military transports. Exploration vessels carried enough sensor equipment to map entire star systems in minutes. Even passenger liners had been designed with rapid conversion to military roles in mind. "Every human ship serves a dual purpose," Kethvar explained. "Their entire civilization has been militarized since the day they learned about galactic politics, but they hid it behind a facade of peaceful trade and exploration." General Vextar leaned forward, his voice heavy with defeat. "Admiral, I witnessed their weapons firsthand: kinetic artillery that ignores shield technology, gravity manipulation on a tactical scale, neural interfaces that make their pilots superhuman. How did they develop such advanced technology while appearing so primitive?" Kethvar's 4 eyes focused on the broken general. "They didn't develop it while appearing primitive. They developed it because they appeared primitive. Every species that has ever encountered humans has underestimated them. The Rigelians shared trade routes thinking humans couldn't exploit them. The Nexan pirates attacked human merchants thinking they couldn't fight back. We prepared to invade them thinking they couldn't resist." The Admiral paused, letting the implications settle. Each encounter gave humans access to new technology, new tactical information, new understanding of galactic military capabilities. They've been preparing for this war for 3 decades, using our own arrogance as camouflage. Commander Zephala's voice carried a note of desperate hope. Surely they can't maintain this level of military readiness indefinitely. The economic costs alone must be staggering. Kethvar's expression grew grim. You're still thinking like a conventional military strategist. Human defense spending represents less than 12% of their gross planetary product. Do you know why? The delegates waited in silence for his explanation. Because their entire industrial base is designed for rapid military conversion. The factories that build their civilian vehicles can produce armored personnel carriers within hours. The shipyards that construct cargo haulers can manufacture warships using the same assembly lines. They don't have a separate military-industrial complex. They have an entire civilization that can become a weapon when necessary. The scope of human preparation was becoming clear to the assembled delegates, and the realization was terrifying. But that's not the most dangerous aspect of their strategy, Kethvar continued. The most dangerous aspect is their networking capability. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed human communication networks spanning dozens of star systems. Every human colony, every trade station, every exploration outpost is connected through quantum communication networks that operate faster than our ships can travel. When we attacked the Kepler system, every human settlement in the galaxy knew about it within minutes. Supreme Tactician Mordune's collective consciousness focused intently. That explains the coordinated nature of their response. But surely, such a communication network must be vulnerable to disruption. We thought so too, Kethvar admitted. Our electronic warfare specialists attempted to jam their communications during the attacks. The humans responded by switching to backup systems we didn't even know existed. They have redundancy built into every aspect of their infrastructure. The Admiral moved closer to the central table, his imposing presence commanding absolute attention. My fellow commanders, I have spent the last 6 months analyzing every aspect of human military capability. What we witnessed at Kepler was not their full strength. It was a carefully calculated demonstration designed to achieve specific political objectives. What do you mean? Asked the Killian ambassador, her mandibles clicking nervously. Kethvar activated another data file. The humans could have destroyed General Vextar's entire fleet in the opening volley. They possessed weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems, but they chose restraint. The holographic display showed tactical analyses of human weapon systems, and the assembled delegates gasped at the implications. They're not interested in conquest, Kethvar explained. They're interested in respect. The Kepler demonstration was designed to prove that attacking humanity is futile, while simultaneously offering us a path to peaceful coexistence. General Vextar looked up from his dejected contemplation. Are you saying they planned this entire conflict from the beginning? I'm saying they've been preparing for every possible scenario since they first encountered galactic civilization, Kethvar replied. War, peace, trade, diplomacy, exploration, expansion. They have contingency plans for situations we haven't even imagined yet. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as delegates began to understand the true scope of human strategic thinking. But why reveal their capabilities now? Commander Zephala asked. They could have maintained their deception indefinitely. Kethvar's expression softened slightly. Because they're not like us. They don't want to rule the galaxy. They want to be accepted as equals. The Kepler demonstration was their way of demanding a seat at this table. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The humans hadn't been preparing to conquer the coalition. They had been preparing to force the coalition to acknowledge their sovereignty. What do we do now? Asked Supreme Tactician Mordun. Our military advantage has been proven illusory. Our intelligence networks have been compromised. Our strategic doctrines have been made obsolete. Before Kethvar could answer, an aide hurried into the chamber and whispered something urgent in his ear. The Admiral's expression grew thoughtful. It appears the humans are requesting a formal audience with this council, he announced. Admiral Sarah Chen herself is requesting permission to address us. The chamber fell silent. The human admiral who had humiliated the Coalition's finest military minds wanted to speak directly to their leadership. What could she possibly want? General Vex Tar asked. Kethvar allowed himself a small smile. I suspect she wants to offer us the same thing humans have been offering every species they've encountered for 3 decades. Partnership. Within the hour, the emergency session had been expanded to include diplomatic protocols. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared via holographic projection, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the nervous energy filling the chamber. She was smaller than most delegates had expected, a middle-aged human female with graying hair and intense brown eyes. But her presence commanded immediate attention. This was the mind behind the tactical brilliance that had redefined galactic warfare in a single day. Honored delegates, Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying no trace of arrogance or triumph. I come before you, not as a conqueror, but as a representative of humanity seeking peaceful coexistence. The simple statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. After such a devastating military demonstration, the humans were still pursuing diplomacy. We demonstrated our military capabilities not to threaten you, but to ensure that future negotiations take place between equals, she continued. Humanity has no interest in galactic conquest. We seek only the right to exist and expand alongside other spacefaring species. General Vex Tar found his voice first. Admiral Chen, your forces humiliated the Coalition military in open combat. Why should we believe your peaceful intentions? Admiral Chen's expression remained calm. General, humanity has been interacting with galactic civilization for 37 years. In that time, we have never fired the first shot in any conflict. We have never invaded another species' territory. We have never demanded tribute or subjugation from our neighbors. She paused, letting her words sink in. What we demonstrated at Kepler was not aggression. It was self-defense elevated to an art form. We will defend ourselves against any threat. But we have no interest in becoming the threat. Commander Zephala leaned forward. What do you want from us, Admiral? Recognition, Admiral Chen replied simply. We want humanity to be acknowledged as a sovereign species with rights equal to any other Coalition member. We want our territorial claims respected. We want our voice heard in galactic affairs. Supreme Tactician Mordun buzzed with activity. And, if we refuse? Admiral Chen's smile was polite but carried an edge of steel. Then we will continue to exist and expand as we have been doing. But any attempt to limit our growth or threaten our people will be met with the same response you witnessed at Kepler. The threat was clear without being explicitly stated. Humanity would not be conquered, enslaved, or eliminated. The Coalition could choose to work with them or around them, but they could not choose to ignore them. Admiral Kethvar stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of his position. Admiral Chen, speaking personally, I believe the Coalition would benefit from human membership. Your tactical innovations alone could revolutionize our defensive capabilities. Thank you, Admiral Kethvar, she replied. We've been aware of your efforts to promote peaceful relations between our species. Humanity remembers its friends. The implication was equally clear. Those who had supported human rights would be rewarded. Those who had opposed them might find future relations more difficult. We're prepared to share certain technological advances with Coalition members, Admiral Chen continued. Our medical technology, our agricultural innovations, our communication networks, but only as partners, not as subjects. The offer was stunning. Human technology had just proven superior to Coalition capabilities in multiple areas. Access to such innovations could transform entire civilizations. General Vex Tar stood slowly, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Admiral Chen, I led the attack on your convoy at Kepler. I ordered the capture of your people. Why would you offer us anything after such hostility? Admiral Chen's expression softened. General, humans understand the difference between following orders and making policy. You were implementing Coalition strategy, not creating it. And more importantly, you're here now, asking questions instead of planning more attacks. That suggests wisdom. The exchange highlighted something fundamental about human psychology. They distinguished between institutional actions and personal responsibility. They could forgive enemies who showed genuine remorse. What assurances can you give us that humanity won't use its technological advantages aggressively? Asked the Killian ambassador. Admiral Chen gestured to her aide, who transmitted a data package to the chamber's central computer. We're providing you with complete technical specifications for our kinetic artillery systems, she announced. Not the weapons themselves, but the defensive countermeasures. If humanity ever becomes aggressive, you'll know how to protect yourselves. The gesture was unprecedented in galactic politics. No species had ever voluntarily shared the secrets of their most effective weapons with potential enemies. Why? Commander Zephyla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because true strength comes from being trusted, not feared, Admiral Chen replied. We want to be part of galactic civilization, not its master. Admiral Kethvar felt a surge of vindication. Everything he had told the War Council about human character was being proven true. They were indeed different from any species the Coalition had encountered. The floor is open for formal proposals, he announced, using his authority as the Council's senior admiral. Supreme Tactician Morden was the first to speak. I move that we offer humanity immediate associate membership in the Galactic Coalition, with full membership to be considered after a probationary period of 1 standard year. Seconded, said Commander Zephyla quickly. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Chen smiled. The first genuine expression of emotion she had shown during the entire proceedings. Humanity accepts your offer. We look forward to working with you toward a peaceful and prosperous galaxy. As the formal protocols of membership began, Admiral Kethvar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. His warnings had been ignored, leading to military humiliation, but his prediction about human character had been proven correct. They were indeed dangerous. But they were dangerous in the way that all great species were dangerous. Not because they sought to destroy others, but because they refused to be destroyed themselves. The humans had forced their way to the table not through conquest, but through competence. They had demanded respect through demonstration rather than domination, and in doing so, they had changed the nature of galactic politics forever. Looking out at the stars through the observation deck's transparent steel, Kethvar realized that the galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. With humanity as partners rather than enemies, the Coalition now possessed capabilities and perspectives that could transform their understanding of what was possible. The Admiral who had cried warning about human danger had been proven right. But he had also been proven right about human potential. And that, he reflected, might be the most important victory of all. As news of humanity's Coalition membership spread across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humans as primitives began reassessing their assumptions. Trade routes that had been closed to human vessels opened overnight. Research partnerships that had been unthinkable became priority initiatives. The humans had achieved in one day what most species required centuries to accomplish. Respect, recognition, and partnership with the galaxy's dominant political force. And they had done it not by conquering their enemies, but by convincing them that humanity was worth having as a friend. Admiral Kethvar smiled as he watched human ships arrive at Coalition stations, their crews ready to begin the work of building a better galaxy for all spacefaring species. His warnings had been vindicated. But more importantly, his hopes for peaceful cooperation had been realized. The humans were indeed everything he had said they were: dangerous, innovative, determined, and adaptable. They were also something he hadn't mentioned in his warnings. They were exactly what the galaxy needed.